Hey everybody, Stuff I Heard Podcast. You ready? Let's kick this off, shall we? Hey everybody, this is the Stuff I Heard Podcast, and I am your host, Josh Peak. How's everybody doing? Today happens to be Wednesday, the 27th of November, 2019. I'd like to give a big happy birthday shout out to my boy, my prodigy, my oldest son, Draven. He's living up in Mukilteo, Washington, just north of Seattle. If you know Draven, or if you have access to Draven, or you are Draven, tell him happy birthday or happy birthday to you. So, however this works out. Today is the day before Thanksgiving. Ooh, I'm so looking forward to eating tomorrow. It's so weird that you look forward to a holiday that you get to eat. But anyway, that's coming up tomorrow. My brother should be in town with his family this evening. And I got a friend, I've talked about him before, Jeff Veely. He's the one that recommended some of my technical upgrades along the way with our Wi-Fi and stuff like that. He should be in town this evening as well. I asked him if he wanted to do a podcast. He's like, yeah, I might be down for that. So I might record a bonus episode and put that out. So be on the lookout for that. Let's talk about Stuff I Heard, because I'm just fresh off of watching episode 1391 of the Joe Rogan Experience. I watched it on YouTube. It's with presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard and Jocko Willnik. This is a good podcast. This was a good sit-down interview session with a viable presidential candidate. This past weekend on Saturday Night Live, they did a skit. I think Will Ferrell was like one of the guest hosts or whatever. I watched the opening monologue. It was really stupid. I was really hoping it would be funnier. One of the first skits was them doing a mock presidential debate, and they had different people playing the candidates. They had a young lady playing Tulsi Gabbard. Like, they were doing this whole skit, and I was thinking the whole time, they're not even going to include her. Like, they're not even going to talk about the fact that she's running for president. But then they do a skit, mocking the Democratic National Convention. And this woman comes on there and she makes a joke. They sort of made her out to be like a Cruella de Vil villain. And she made a joke about, your fear makes me stronger, that kind of thing, which is funny. But it sort of poked fun at all the candidates equally, which was nice. In the past, it seems like they seem to have an angle, and they want to push their angle as hard as they can. And this was sort of open, mocking everybody, which was fun. The funny part was it seemed to make Tulsi look pretty decent across the board. I mean, even though she was sort of played as a villain compared to the other candidates, they all look like idiots compared to her, which is reality. Which is really the way the candidates seem to be when you see them on stage talking to each other. You got a lot of candidates who seem surprised that they're there and seemed intimidated by talking in front of people. And then you get someone like Tulsi who is ready. She's ready, she's willing, she's capable. And she just did a 3-hour podcast with Joe Rogan talking about the issues again and talking about, how she's, running without any donations from any lobbyists or any campaign fund. It's all people donating money, individuals. And, she discusses a lot of the topics that are coming up about being president and about the challenges of the office. And I think she came across great. I think that anybody who watches it or listens to it is going to be amazed at who their new president may be. I'd love to see her make it to the end with Donald and them have a real conversation, a real debate. In the past, he's been a bully to a lot of people and given them nicknames, and he's done it in such a way that it's been funny. But I don't really know that he would have anything to really go at her for. She's very smart. She's very intelligent. She comes across very articulate. She's got experience, 16 years serving in the National Guard. She served tours overseas as a field medic. She's been serving in the why can't I speak this morning? Too much coffee. She's serving in the 2nd Congressional District of Hawaii for 6 years so far, And listen, if you're on the fence and you're not sure who to vote for, do yourself a favor, listen to this podcast, watch this podcast, and you're going to be amazed. You're going to be amazed that a character who, not a character, that's the wrong word, that a candidate who is running for president can be so articulate and so well thought out. And Jo throws her curveballs of questions, and she comes across very well. This is very timely in the fact that, here we are, we're approaching the time to vote, and they're going to narrow the field down. And up to now, I feel like voters have been told who they're supposed to vote for. I mean, that was one of the things about when Trump ran for office this last time is, like, everybody, the news tried to tell the voters, oh, well, he'll never make it. There's no way. This is the candidate that's really going. And along the way, the American people were sick and tired of being told what to do. And so at every step, they are told, oh, there's no way Trump can win the ticket. Oh, there's no way he can get the nomination. Oh, there's no way that he can beat Hillary. And every step of the way, the American people were like, oh yeah, watch this. And Tulsi is that candidate for right now. To me, she is that candidate. She has that experience. She has that perspective that even Donald don't have. She is more thought out. She is more compassionate. She is more understanding of what it means to lose American lives in a combat situation. She is more... She's more. There's no other way to say it. You gotta watch her. I'm telling you, if you watch her, you're gonna be amazed. You're gonna be like, okay, yeah, maybe I need to start paying more attention. Maybe I need to start retweeting some of her stuff because lobbyists are not paying for her commercials. Maybe I need to let other people know, my neighbors know, my family know. Hey, by the way, this is a candidate you need to pay attention to. So anyway, let's talk about some other stuff I heard, okay? I went on a Joe Rogan deep dive this past week. Well, I'll say this past week, since the last podcast. I did find myself with some extra time behind the wheel so that I could listen to podcasts as I went down the road. I listened to episode 1386 with Matt Taibbi. He's a journalist. He talks about the election process and his place in it and how, during the campaign for presidency last time, they were told what they could say and what they couldn't say, and how journalism is being really hindered in the fact that they can't go after stories anymore that take investigative story and it takes time to investigate and come up with a concise story. They're being pushed to put out information quickly instead of doing research. Editors are being promoted because of the pace of things in a position where they're not ready. And so you get reports out, the ISIS leader Baghdadi was killed, and the Washington Post put out that he was a religious leader. They didn't put that he was a terrorist or the head of a terrorist organization. They put that he was a religious leader and that he was killed. And it's just irresponsible journalism. And this guy talks about how, they do research on these stories, and sometimes they can spend a lot of money and a lot of time on it. And at the end of the day, when they come out with a story, if it doesn't do well, they just look at it as a failure and they go, okay, well, why did we invest all that money to get nothing in return? Like, we really went after this and the American public just didn't care. And that's true. Listen, the American public has a lot of things distracting them. The biggest thing is their phones, okay? Their phones are constantly going. People are constantly putting on Facebook, living my best life, YOLO, and taking selfies with Instagram and pictures of their food, and they're on Twitter debating each other like they're drunk people in a bar room. They could care less about you writing your story. When I was a kid, there was a big deal about having a newspaper and being able to read the newspaper and find out what the news was. I came just off the cusp of Walter Cronkite being the guy who delivered the news fairly and openly and honestly. And the nation tuned in to hear Walter Cronkite talk about what's going on. And there was a big push to Walter to start giving opinions. And when that came, he decided it was time to retire, and he got out. And newspapers, same thing. They would spin things the way they wanted to spin them so that you would tune in and you would pay attention. Here lately, newspapers are doing something different. There's actually photos that people are putting on Twitter of neighbors. Same paper. New York Times. Same paper. Same picture. Different story. One is skewed for Republicans. One is skewed for Democrats. They're actually wrapped up in different rubber bands, different colors, so they know where to deliver it to which people. Different story. Same picture, same everything, different story. Because they're trying to appeal to the echo chamber, which we seem to want. I mean, think about it. You have an opinion on something. I have an opinion, okay? I just talked about the fact that I like Tulsi Gabbard, okay? I want to talk to other people who like Tulsi Gabbard. I want people to be on board. I want people to talk about it. I want people to get, oh yeah, let's talk about it. What I don't want is I don't want people who are talking about Kamala Harris to suddenly be like, hey, have you heard what Kamala Harris has to say? Yeah, I have heard some of what she has to say, and I'm not on board. I want to hear what my candidate has to say. Now, that's not to say that I don't also want to hear who's in opposition. I'm not totally against Donald Trump being president. It works out in my favor either way. What have I got to lose? My life is not affected by who the president is. I'm just saying, this is the first time in my life that I'm excited about a presidential candidate. And that is Tulsi Gabbard. Okay? But the echo chamber of the things that you're clicking on Facebook and on Instagram and your newspapers, it's all reverberating back to you what you want. Here's the thing though, like the way these things are done is they're made so that you click on them, like the online deals. They're made so that you click on them and you get more information, and even if you're outraged, you'll click on it more. Here's the mentality. If I tell you what you want to hear, you may click on it once a day. If I tell you what you don't want to hear, you're going to click on it 4 or 5 times a day. You're going to constantly click on it to be like, what do they got to say now? What do they got to say now? What do they got to say now? And you're constantly on it. It doesn't have to be that way. Joe talked about Ari Shaffir went on his Facebook or his YouTube or whatever it was, and he constantly just watched videos of kittens and puppies. And he said, I wonder if I can change my algorithm. If I make myself watch nothing but videos of kittens and puppies, if in the future, when I click on my YouTube and it opens, it just automatically shows me videos of kittens and puppies. And after a month of doing it, he's like, yeah, every time I open it now, it's just kittens and puppies. Makes me laugh. It's interesting. It's interesting how you can hack the algorithm that is designed to get you to click on things. My father-in-law's got a deal for Fox News, and he loves Fox News to the point that it makes him have sleepless nights. It wakes him up in the middle of the night. He feels nervous. He feels terrified. And I was like, well, of course you're terrified. They're trying to sell you fear, and you're buying it, hook, line, and sinker. You're clicking on it. You're all over it. From the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, you're drinking whatever Kool-Aid they're serving you. So when you go to sleep at night, that fear is keeping you awake. That fear has constantly got your mind working, thinking, oh, I'm just not good enough. Oh, the world's going to come to an end. Oh, if I don't do this, it's all going to hell. It's just overwhelming. Doesn't have to be. But it's what you're deciding to take in, and therefore it's what you're getting out of it. I'll tell you what though, back on the subject of the newspapers, when I was a kid we looked forward to getting the newspaper whenever we had a story you wanted to read. Now in 2019, my little neighborhood somehow has a free newspaper that pops up on my driveway once in a while, and I'm annoyed that I get a free newspaper. I don't want it. I don't want anything that's in it. There's nothing I want to read in it. There's nothing that I'm going to get from it. I'm not going to read it. Matter of fact, I pick it up from the driveway and throw it in the trash can every time I see it. And I wish I could find somebody who delivers the thing so that I could beat them with the paper and say, please stop delivering this thing. And if you don't, I'm going to track you down. I'm going to beat you with this paper every time I see you. I don't want the free paper. Stop it. Just stop it. I get the fact that you're trying to do something nice, or maybe my stupid homeowners association is like, yeah, we'll just buy the paper for everybody because we got this extra money and we'll just put it towards this. Whatever it is, just stop it. I don't want it. No one asked me to check this box if you want this paper. I don't want it. I don't want it. If somebody wants my paper, listen, Come by my house, pick it up from my driveway, you can have my stupid paper. I don't want it. Matt Taibbi was a good interview with Joe. He gave a lot of information. If you're into journalism, if you know somebody into journalism, you're going to enjoy this podcast. Good conversation with a very smart guy. Then I listened to episode 1387 with Josh Homme, Homme. He is the founder and lead singer-songwriter for Queens of the Stone Age. I'll be honest, I can't quite think of a Queens of the Stone Age song off the top of my head. I know that I like them because I think I have one of their songs in my playlist on my iTunes. But the guy is very smart and very interesting. This is an interesting podcast. They talk about a lot of things that are fascinating to me. I guess as a creator and listening to these guys talk about music and how they come up with different ideas, the main thing he talks about is collaboration, which I'm all for. If you guys are following this podcast at all, you know that I'm all for collaboration. Again, really cool podcast. Check it out. Episode 1388 with Louis. I'm going to mess up his last name. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Sayos? P-S, this is how you spell it. P-S-I-H-O-Y-O-S. How do you pronounce that? I have no idea. He's a photographer, and he made a film. He talks about being a photographer and hanging out with this billionaire who was a friend of his, and they were talking about making a movie, and it just so happens they were on some beach, and his son was playing with Steven Spielberg's son, and they were talking, and he says, hey, I got this idea for, to make a movie. Do you have any suggestions for a first-time filmmaker? And he's like, yeah, don't do anything with a boat or with animals. And of course his first film was called The Cove. It's about dolphins. So he said, okay, great. So my first project is using a boat and animals, so this is going to go over well. But yeah, they talk about, in this podcast, they talk a lot about the overfishing crisis that's happening right now. They talk about the mercury levels in fish. They talk about how poisonous fish are to eat in a lot of the fish that we eat on a regular basis. It's pretty alarming. There's a lot of information in this that I found startling. It talks about Japan overfishing their waters and how they've been in marine sanctuaries fishing, and how he ended up on a plane once with a guy who's like the head guy over this whole industry, and he said he had a moment where he could question the guy, and the guy said, listen, I got this many million people living in my country, and if we don't get food, we starve. And right now, the only food we can get, because we're maxed out on what we can grow and the animals we can raise, so the only other food we can get is from the ocean. It's pretty alarming. Very interesting podcast, though. Again, that was episode 1388. Then I listened to episode 1389 with Chris Kresser, K-R-E-S-S-E-R. He debunks the Game Changers documentary. Apparently there's a documentary on Netflix called The Game Changers, and it talks about how, Kirk Cameron and Arnold Schwarzenegger are on there talking about, becoming a vegan and how it's changed their life. And this guy sort of debunks the whole thing, and he's talking about how, listen, there's a lot of problems with going vegan. There's a lot of things that you don't get that's bioavailable with meat. And, if you're on these different types of programs, there's supplements that you gotta have, and you gotta have protein, and you gotta have, B12, and here's the ways you get it, and it's just easier to eat meat, If you're into nutrition and you're curious about going vegan, I highly recommend listening to this. It will change your perspective. Okay. Let's talk about Two Bears, One Cave. So Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura are comedians. They're best friends. They're both large fellas who are they've been best friends for a long time. They've always talked about the fact that if they were gay, they'd be called bears. So this show is Two Bears, One Cave. This is sort of their joke to each other and with the community who watches them. And Bert came out with a dance video during Sober October because he kept telling the guy, he's like, we need to have like a dance-off, like a dance challenge and stuff like that. And nobody was really on board with it except for Tom. And they didn't really discuss it. They sort of backed out of the idea and decided to do something different. But Bert actually hired a choreographer and a film crew, and he filmed himself doing this dance. And it's a crazy little dance, and then you've probably seen it on Facebook. Someone's forwarded it, and it says, wife says don't drink at the Christmas party. 3 drinks later, here I am. And it shows him doing this crazy dance. And he actually dances pretty well in the video. Anyway, he put that online, and it went viral because people tagged it and people put their own memes in it. And, millions of views later, I guess Tom, in the process, decided, you know what, I'm going to do a video. So he did like a retaliation video, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good up to a point. Missy Elliott is the music, and he's like, I didn't get the okay from Missy to do it. I hope she's okay with it. Like, it's her music and it's good music, but he learned how to dance. There's a Steven Seagal reference where he's wearing some clothes that looks like Steven Seagal, where he's eating a carrot. There's some picture of him online eating a carrot, and he tries to do like a shout out to Steven Seagal in the thing. But then he does this dance, and he spent some big money to make this comeback video, to the point that at the end there's a very large, 400-pound dude who they do the face swap thing, and they put Bert's face on this guy. Anyway, on Two Bears, One Cave, they talk about the process of how he did that, and how instrumental it was that Bert cooperates so that they could do the face swap thing, and it is hilarious to hear. Literally, I think it's the hardest time I've ever heard Bert laugh, and I've heard him laugh to the point that dogs in other countries are listening to it and their ears are hurting. He can reach an octave that's incredible when he loses control laughing, and he does that in this. And I really thought he was going to die. I was like, I'm listening to it, and I'm like, is he going to be okay? It's hilarious. Anyway, if you've seen Tom's video, it's good. Like I said, it's good up to a point. There's a thing at the end where he supposedly stabs Bert. I don't know that. I didn't get that part. That was over the top. I may have talked about this on the last podcast. I feel like I have. I don't listen to my own podcasts, if you can tell. So anyway, Two Bears, One Cave, episode 13. It's out now. I've talked in the past, I know I have, about watching The Crown on Netflix. Queen Elizabeth taking power, becoming the queen. This shows her reign as queen and the problems that they have in each episode. This is season 3, new cast, a lot of challenges. I don't know what they've done different with season 3 that they did for season 1 and 2. 1 and 2 are awesome. 1 and 2, there are moments in it where you literally feel the overwhelming burden that she has as queen. And it is so impactful. But season 3 is just boring. The whole thing is boring. Even having Helen Bonham Carter in it is boring. I watched the final episode. I thought, okay, I know I talked about this last podcast. Up to that point, I thought, okay, we've seen this much of it. At some point here, there's going to be a redeeming quality for the season. And they're going to be like, oh, here's the home run hit. So we're down to the last episode, and I watched the last episode. And when it went off, I thought, yeah, okay. That's what you decided to put on the show. Good for you. Not impressed. I'm not impressed. Not at all. Now, there's a couple things that popped up recently that I did want to watch. And my wife sort of made fun of me about it. Netflix has a show with Dolly Parton on it called Heartstrings. And each episode has something to do with a song that she's known for. One of her hit songs. And in the beginning of each episode, she talks to the camera and she says, hey, I'm Dolly, and this is the song that I wrote, and this is what inspired it. And each episode is sort of like a montage example of a modern story that has to do with how she came up with the song in the past. And my wife walked in on me watching it, and she was like, what are you watching? Is this the Lifetime channel? Because it's kind of like a Lifetime episode, each one of them. They're not tied together. They're completely different, and it is like watching the Lifetime channel, okay? But I'm going to tell you right now that it's my guilty pleasure. I know people are going to mock me about it, and they're going to be like, I can't believe you're watching this crap. It's good. It's good. I'm just going to watch it. I'm 2 episodes in. The first one's called Jolene. She talks about how she came up with Jolene. She said that years ago she met a girl and her name was Jolene, and she told her, she said, that's a beautiful name. You know, I like that name so much I may use it as a song one day. And then fast forward to, you know, she was married and there was a girl that worked at a bank, and the girl was flirting with her husband, and she had words with her, and she thought, I'm gonna write a song about you, and I'm gonna use that name Jolene, you know, because she's like, I didn't want to call the actual woman out, but like I wanted to tell my story. And she's like, every story every song that I write is a story. Every story is worth telling if it's personal to you. So the first one's Jolene. It's really cool. My wife actually did the research while we were watching it. The main character is Felicity Huffman. I don't really know who she is, but my wife knew who she was. She said she's like a reality star that, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, it's a good episode. The second episode, she talks about the song Two Doors Down, about how she was on tour a lot with people of different races and cultures and sexual preferences. And, you know, she said, we had to all learn to get along and become one big family no matter what our crazy differences were. And you learn to value the people around you even though they were different than you. And she said, you know, you never know, like you think you know what you think is important, and the people around you may be different, but you don't know what's happening 2 doors down. It's kind of the reference to the story. So anyway, the episode was good. I liked it. I know a lot of people are going to be hating on it because there's you know, reference to gays, and there's reference to a girl who's transitioning and whatever. I'm just saying, I liked it. I thought they did a good job. One thing that I mentioned though, watching the thing with my wife, I said, how old is Dolly Parton? I had to Google it, and she's 73 years old, but there's a scene in that, one of those shows where she's wearing something really low cut, and I was like, those are not 73 years old. And she goes, no, not much of her is. That's a lot of plastic surgery. And I was like, oh, good point. Fair enough. Anyway, I went and visited my uncle last night. My uncle came to town to visit the family, and I went over to see him and my cousin Rebecca. And when I came home, my wife was watching something on Netflix called Shine On. It's a series done by why can't I say her name? Reese Witherspoon. You have to pronounce the R and the W. Reese Witherspoon. Apparently, she did a show back in 2018 called Shine On, where she interviews people. And I walked in, and she was interviewing Pink. They were hanging out and driving in the car and talking about being a mom and trying to, you know, run a business and trying to become entertainers and sort of balancing out this life together. And hang on, I gotta reset my camera. It's the annoying part of this podcast. All right, so I'm back. So they talk about, you know, trying to balance out this life of career and being a mom and, you know, all this other stuff. And it was good. It was a really good episode. And when it was going off, like, you know, my wife was like, all right, you know, I'm done watching this. I'll watch something else. And I was like, what is this? And she started explaining it to me. Apparently, the first episode that she did was with Dolly Parton. And she talks about how Dolly helped her get started in business and gave her advice. And she's like, you know, I'll watch it again. She's like, it was really good. So she went back and hit the thing again, and we watched the episode together. And I was amazed at how small Dolly's house was. While we're watching the episode, my wife Googles her net worth, and it's like $500 million. And I was like, wow, holy cow. But also, you look at Dolly hustle and make music and make movies and make television shows and create a theme park and give back to the community. And, you know, she talks about giving to schools in the local area and donating books and donating computers and giving back to education. And you sort of go, good for you. Good for you. You deserve it. Like, you did it the right way. You tried to employ family and friends and you tried to do all the right things for the right reasons, and it seemed to have worked out. And good for you. So I want to support Dolly. I guess if I have to title this episode, it'd be Tulsi Gabbard, Joe Rogan, Dolly Parton. There we go. That should be the title of this episode for the Stuff I Heard podcast. So yeah. I looked at everybody else she interviewed during the season. There's none of the other names I recognize, but Pink and Dolly Parton. So if you only watch those two, then good for you. That's all the notes I have written down. Again, happy birthday to my son Draven. I love you. 25 years old, man. That's a neat milestone. Thanksgiving's coming up. Don't overeat. You're going to be overwhelmed. There is a new show on Netflix today. I'm really debating whether to get in the garage and do more woodworking or to sit down and watch this show. It's The Irishman. Now, if you've seen anything about it, it's a big deal. Martin Scorsese, Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci. This is going to be the thing people talk about. I'm going to take a notepad in there and write down what I want to talk about when I watch it. It is holy crap good from the previews, and I can't wait to watch it. So I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you to everybody who is reaching out to me. Thank you to there's a pickleball company out there that reached out to me on email. Oh, you guys are going to love this. You know, I've talked in the past about Josh West, my buddy. He plays pickleball, and he's a big pickleball player up in the Salisbury, Maryland area. I can't believe I just said he's a big pickleball player. That sounds so wrong. Anyway, he has said for a while that he wants to start a pickleball podcast, which is a mouthful, and also something he's never done. Mainly because he gets distracted easily, and I think he lacks the follow-through to do it. Listen, he's got a lot of follow-through with a lot of things, but this just ain't one of them. For whatever reason, he's just not done it. So I've picked at him a little bit on the podcast, kind of like friends do. Like, hey, what happened to your podcast? When are you going to do that? Still nothing, huh? Okay, yeah, good job. Keep doing nothing there, dude. You're missing out. And I've mentioned this over and over again, and someone from this golden, what is it called? Golden Pickleball reached out to me on email. Hey, we'd like to collaborate on something. And I was like, whoa, maybe they got the wrong Josh. Maybe they meant to contact Josh. How did they get my email? And I'm like, oh yeah, I get this stuff once in a while from YouTube or from the podcast. I don't know. But anyway, I wrote them back a nice email, and I said, hey, thank you for reaching out. I would love to do something with you in the future. Here is my friend Josh West's email. Please reach out to him as well. He is deep in the pickleball community, especially in the Baltimore, Maryland area. I don't know much about pickleball other than the fact that my friend was supposed to start a podcast and never followed through. And I reached out to him and I said, does this look like something legit? And he's like, oh yeah, Scott Golden is like a pro player. He makes his own paddles. And I was like, really? Okay. So this is real. So anyway, if you're involved in pickleball and you know anything about this, reach out to me. Tell me. Give me some input. Let me know what I'm getting into here. I don't know anything about it. I like to collaborate. I like to help people out. I like to, promote the positive. And hey, this is an olive branch. This is an opportunity. So we'll see what happens. Check out my dad's YouTube, R Peak. He is back in Maine and he's doing all kinds of fun projects. Reach out to stuff I kind of care about on YouTube. He did a collaboration with a blacksmith guy. I haven't watched the video yet. Sorry, dude, I haven't had time. But yeah, so things are moving. Things are happening. So let's get on board. Choo choo. As Tulsi Gabbard says, aloha. And as Josh says, cue the cow. Oh, please remember to rate, review, subscribe. Cue the cow. Almost forgot that part.